Our thanks to Officer Munson, and our thanks to two principals who are joining the conversation here. Dr. Beth Bender, principal at Gateway STEM High School, and Dale Bergdorf, principal at Jennings High School. Back with us still, Margie Van Dieven. Okay, so I have you all at the table here. What do principals need from DESE?
It's really hard to say. I think about that, but we don't spend much time, as she alluded to before, thinking about DESE. We're so entrenched in our work that it's hard to say we need DESE to do this. We have to take care of business ourselves. And that's one of the things that good principals know, is that we have to take care of business. They do what they do. We hope for great communication, clear expectations, understanding of our challenges. But as to sitting around wishing things, it's not where we spend our time in most cases.
Pretty much just hope for support as well. With continuing to work with universities for training programs for teachers, continue to look for new ways to train teachers, new avenues to gain assistant principals and those individuals as well. But again, as Dr. Bender said, we don't sit around and think about that kind of stuff. We concentrate on what we can handle within our own buildings. It's great that we have conversations and they allow us time to meet as principals and be part of those conversations. But I think just the support mainly is just there.
You said taking care of business. You are taking care of some business in the Jennings School District. Brag on yourself for a second, because you're teetering on the unaccreditation line there for a while, but the scores have turned around. What gives? How did you pull it off? How are you continuing to pull it off?
Remember, it's not just me, Casey. It's a lot of folks. We have lots of new folks, but we have also lots of folks who have just said, you know what, all kids can learn, and this is what we're going to do to make that happen. We take a very strong look at our data. We spend a lot of time on data, but at the same time we spend a lot of time on what do our kids need. We have washers and dryers in every building. Parents can come wash clothes, so students are not out of school for uniforms. This spring, the high school will have the spot will be a clinic. They're on campus, so that eventually, as that program rolls out, kids don't have to lose school time to be seen, or to get medical needs met, or just to get some counseling. We partner with Youth in Need to make sure that social workers are in place. All of our students are getting wraparound services. Everybody has their needs met, and then education becomes that other thing you do when you're there. Working really hard on attendance and making sure that students at Jennings understand you're going to come to school first, because that leads to bigger and better things. We take a very strong approach. We look at our curriculum in elementaries and middle schools. The curriculum is 1 year ahead. High school, we are really concentrating on what are our kids missing, and how do we as educators fill those gaps, and how do we push for that career-ready person who's going to leave our building ready to do whatever, whether it's college, whether it's military, or whether it's the career path. Are they ready, and are they ready in each area? So that's really what we're concentrating on, and we are really finding big gains.
You, from around just to brag on you a little bit for yourself, it was around the 50% area. Now it's closer to 79–80% when the states are scoring your schools.
It is.
Okay, real quickly, I'll take a pause in this conversation just because you mentioned the educators. I want to introduce everyone to a teacher by the name of Ms. Spencer.
Miss Spencer was my 5th grade teacher, and everybody either knew her as mom or grandma. She was very, very loving. She was serious about learning, and you knew that as soon as you hit the door on the first day of school. She is one of those urban teachers that really, I guess, kind of went outside of the curriculum to teach us things. She broke some of the school rules in order to not just teach her students the reading, writing, arithmetics, and the basics, but she went outside of the curriculum to teach us other things.
Who is it?
It's me.
Oh, hi, me.
You have something about you that people just respect, whether they're bad people, good people,
Can I say
quote
this
unquote. You can say it.
Okay, I have a good right foot. It's a wonderful feeling. It is. And to care about them. That I guess out of that they knew that I cared about them sincerely.
I think having a teacher like that is really good for students who are deemed at risk because they bring not only just the sternness that you may not get at home, which most people would consider tough love, but they bring you a sense of pride to yourself. They bring you a lot of what you don't, as an at-risk student, have at home. You may not have mom there to hug you at night. She may be at work working at 2 jobs, or some parents of at-risk children may be on drugs. So to have a teacher like that and to know that somebody loves you really would make you push harder to do well in life.
We've heard you can feel a little kumbaya sometimes when we talk about relationships and what they mean, but boy, I think you saw it right there. Is that teachable to your staff, or can you replicate that?
I don't think you can replicate the exact thing. Every teacher has to find their own kind of mojo, but you can definitely model that, and you can have those conversations about, where our students are. This is really, especially in this day and age, this past semester, with everything that went on in the St. Louis community, more than ever, we realized that we had to step outside of the box of just being an educator. When our kids came this school year, I asked the staff, I said, we're in tough times. When the kids come in, I need us to be kinder and more gentler, better listeners than we've ever been. And as I talked to my teachers early on in the year, what I was hearing back was, the kids are a lot nicer this year. We're just seeing more politeness. And what we realized is we set that tone. And that's really important. And those kind of teachers I have like that at Gateway are amazing. And they do change lives. And if you can get a student like that, then you can get to the math and the chemistry and the statistics. But that connection is really crucial to have the optimum learning.
She also said, go ahead.
I was going to just echo her sentiments. You can't, we call it when you're looking for teachers. You can't teach it, it is there.
You want a good educator in every classroom, you said. Is there a way at the state level that you're trying to do some of what we're talking about here to bring us more teachers like that?
Well, the first place to look would be in our educator preparation program, where we're focusing now not only on the content tests, but also looking at the performance of the teacher in the classroom. How do they interact with students? How do they react to the questions? How do they follow up? So yes, I do believe that it takes both. You have to know the content, you have to be able to build the relationships. Those two work together. Sometimes, most of the time, the relationship comes first, as you said, and then the content follows. But you can't be a really highly effective teacher if you don't have both. And so, yes.
You mentioned data. We hear that from thinking like presidential election to the prosecutor's office. How is education using data? Because that's something that you can wrap your hands around for us.
In the old days, when I was a student, we took tests. The teachers marked it in the book, and we kind of moved on. Now there is a lot more reflection on the work. You're charting what your students have learned. Have they mastered these concepts? Where are they at related to standards? So we are charting all of their academic growth. We chart related to post-secondary preparation. Where is this student as far as if they're free and reduced lunch? Are they an undocumented student? And we chart all that so we know how best to serve them. So we've become very, very data saturated in education.
And the tests, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some changes we're having this year when it comes to Common Core, something that a lot of people are very passionate about, but in terms of the Common Core standards will now be reflected in the testing somehow, so we might see some different results there?
Yes, we're having lots of conversations about that. The tests that will be administered in the spring are around the new revised standards, and it's a total different format for students. They'll be taking them online. It's a completely different system. So
a different set of test-taking skills.
Yes. So even though kids are very accustomed, I believe, today in using the mouse and knowing how to click and save and move things, it's just a different format. No more paper and pencil. So we'll see some different results, and we'll use the data to analyze what that's telling us about.
Are administrators worried about how this might negatively reflect and what it might mean?
Of course we are.
Yeah.
Of course we are.
We spend a lot of time concerned about the tests and how it reflects on our school and how it reflects on our students. And while you have that burden, you also know that it kind of pushes us. I think it pushes us to be better in some ways, But it is a stress that, 20 years ago, nothing like the pressure related to scores and exists that it does today. I mean, it's a different game than when I first got into education, I'm sure, is when you
It's
got
very
into-
different from when I was in education. But I think there's, a lot of value in looking at understand, people want to know, people want to understand how are the schools doing. It's not just the teacher anymore that's paying, or even just one individual parent. They want to know how's my school doing? How's the district doing? How are we doing? We want to know how are we doing as a state. So there's some value. Yes, there's some climate and culture that we need to look at around testing, and how do we make it very, very meaningful. If we're collecting data and just collecting data, that's of no use to anyone. We're really using the data, and we have to reflect upon how what happened today and what we're looking at today impacts tomorrow. And teaching kids to do it too. I mean, I think that's the change that I've seen the most.
That's
Is
one of
teaching.
the-
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. That's
No,
one of
you
the
got
things
it.
that we're doing too, is having students track their own data. Making sure they understand and they take buy-in into where our accreditation falls. We've challenged all the teachers at Jennings High this semester that they're all going to have students in their classrooms track their data. We've had teachers doing it in small pockets and seeing great results out of it. It becomes a competition. We're all competitive, no matter what grade you're in or where you are. So we're data saturated, but I do think a lot of it is good data. If my students at Jennings High don't score well on the ACT, it affects which colleges they can go to. That's part of my job as the leader of that building, is to make sure that their scores get them anywhere they want to go. And that's something to be said in the community.
And I guess if I could just quickly add, when we're talking about data to the general public who might be watching this tonight, we're not talking about just getting numbers back. What we're looking at, and I heard Tiffany Anderson present to our board last week, who beautifully went through how you look at the individual strand of what kids know and are able to do. So you understand, okay, this child can add up to 3-digit numbers, and this whole group here is not quite reaching that. So what's happening? So it's really not looking at, I want to be clear, it's not, when we talk about data, we're not just talking about a number. We're talking about instructional practice and what do we need to...
What they've mastered, what they
right,
haven't
that type of
mastered.
thing.
If they have achieved certain standards, then we know we can move on, instead of in the old days, you just moved on. So I think it makes us much more reflective.
Unfortunately.